The hearing on the Committee of the Environment is hereby called to order, and we will ask the clerk to please read the title of the bill.
Amending Title 21 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Miscellaneous by adding a new chapter 21-3000 entitled Environmental Justice Reporting to establish standards for studying and reporting on environmental justice under certain terms and conditions.
Okay, we want to say thank you to everyone for showing up and being here. We need to lean on you to please honor the time of 2 minutes. We know all of us can talk for several hours on this topic. However, we have a number of witnesses and council members will be in and out throughout the next couple of hours. We must finish at 4:15. So I'm asking everyone to please honor the clock and honor what was in your email, to please hold your testimony to 2 minutes so that we can allow members on this team, on this committee, to take care of other business that is as demanding. I'm pleased to have members of the committee and Councilman Al Taltenberger, Councilwoman Helen Gim, Councilwoman Janie Blackwell. So with that, we want to call, the chair is going to, we're going to hear first testimony first on the bill, and then we're going to close the meeting, close the hearing, go into a meeting to take action on the bill today, and then we'll go back into a hearing to hear testimony on the resolution. But it's imperative that we first take care of this bill. Bill number 170712. So with that, we want to call up Christine Knapp, the Office of Sustainability. And clerk, you did read the title of the bill, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So right at this moment, we're speaking purely on bill number 170712. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Reynolds Brown and members of the committee. I'm Christine Knapp. I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability, testifying on Bill 170712. Thank you, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, for your leadership on this bill and for helping us get that power purchase agreement bill passed earlier in session. The Office of Sustainability is responsible for implementing GreenWorks, the city's sustainability framework, which includes visions around food and drinking water, air quality, energy, climate change, natural resources, transportation, waste, and sustainable education, stewardship, and economic opportunities. The goal of the Kenney administration is to ensure that every Philadelphian, no matter what zip code they live in, is able to thrive and succeed. Sustainability is a key part of ensuring that every resident is healthy, lives in a quality neighborhood, and has the opportunity to prosper. Sustainability is about more than the environment. It is also about tackling issues such as unemployment, health, and neighborhood equity. In a city where 26% of our residents live in poverty and 1 in 4 residents doesn't know where their next meal will come from, we need to continue to prioritize sustainability for its other many benefits. Becoming a cleaner, greener city will reduce the number of children who suffer asthma attacks, lower energy costs, increase access to healthy food, prevent basement flooding, and create job opportunities in the clean economy. Philadelphia has made a lot of progress in the last decade in advancing sustainability programs. However, we know that not all neighborhoods in Philadelphia have equally benefited from this work. One of our goals over the last few years has been to prioritize our work in neighborhoods where it will make the most difference. For example, we've been working for the last 6 months in Hunting Park on a Beat the Heat pilot to address the disproportionately high heat experienced in that community and to understand how the city and other partners can help residents thrive during high heat. Communities like Hunting Park are the most vulnerable to climate change, and yet the voices of these residents are often too often not heard during decision-making processes. That's why we support the creation of an Environmental Justice Commission. As we continue making strides to restore communities confronting disproportionately high environmental threats, it's vital that restoration efforts be rooted in the experience and expertise of those communities. The guidance of this commission will be indispensable to finding neighborhoods with adverse human health or environmental effects, identifying data helpful to understanding environmental justice concerns, reviewing existing city programs, policies, activities, and processes that may impact environmental justice concerns, and addressing barriers to meaningful participation in decision-making affecting residents of environmental justice areas. I'm happy to provide my support for Bill 170712. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I thank you very, very, very much, Christine Knapp, for all the work that you do every day
Thank you.
in this space. Before we move to questions, we want to invite, you stay where you are. We want to invite up Allison Acevedo and Jerome Shabazz. Allison Acevedo is with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, and Jerome Shabazz, who does a lot of great work in the 4th Councilmatic District, is with the Overbrook Environmental Education Center. Please state your name and provide testimony on Bill number 170712.
My name is Allison Acevedo. Good afternoon, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. Good afternoon, other council members. I am, as Councilwoman Reynolds Brown mentioned, the Director of the Office of Environmental Justice for the Department of Environmental Protection in Pennsylvania. So the Office of Environmental Justice was established in 2002 as a result of community-based efforts and advocacy initiatives statewide that addressed environmental injustice called upon active state participation by residents of communities that historically faced barriers to establishing policymaking and implementation initiatives at DEP. So this office has 3 objectives: improve environmental impacts, empower communities, and advance economic development in environmental justice areas. So DEP defines environmental justice areas as those areas that are 30% people of color and or 20% low income. So our purview and the reason that we exist is to support communities that are in environmental justice areas. So we also have an environmental justice advisory board. Jerome Shabazz here today is one of our members of this board, and that board provides additional tools to support and advance environmental injustice and environmental justice and work against environmental justice in Pennsylvania. The stakeholders who are involved in the EJAB provide guidance to DEP around rules, regulations, and policies that address environmental inequities and support environmental justice communities. Also critical to the environmental justice work is the state's Environmental Rights Amendment. Article 1, Section 27 of our state constitution gives all Pennsylvanians the right to clean air, pure water, and preservation of natural environment, and mandates that the state protect and is trustee of our public resources. So the Environmental Rights Amendment provides specific guidance and motivation for our office to do the work that we do. So we just wanted to really come here today to show you that we're a partner in working with the City of Philadelphia. We have tools in addition to the EJAB, and we're engaged in the community in a way that we're supporting environmental education. We have environmental mapping tools, the EJ Viewer, which really helps to determine where environmental justice areas are and what our permit practices are in environmental justice areas in Philadelphia and across the state. And then we also have representatives throughout the state. We have an Eastern District coordinator of environmental justice that is a direct contact to folks here in Philadelphia. So we have a new coordinator starting. That position's been vacant for a while, so we have a new coordinator in the Eastern region starting in December to really support any efforts through this office and to really support efforts of environmental justice. But we just want to show our partnership with the City of Philadelphia, and we look forward to working with the city to support progress that the Office of Sustainability and other areas of government have made towards sustainability goals and reducing environmental impacts on communities. Our office seeks to learn from and offer DEP resources to Philadelphia, and I'm personally always available by phone or email to support any efforts here in Philadelphia, and again, our new staff person is as well. So we particularly look forward to our continued partnership with the city as the city develops legislation, data and resources, and public engagement opportunities around environmental justice and environmental disparities.
Thank you for your testimony and congratulations.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jerome Shabazz.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Blondell, one of Reynolds Brown, and the rest of the council members. Thank you very much. My name is Jerome Shabazz. I'm the Executive Director of the Overbrook Environmental Education Center. And last year I had the privilege of being nominated to sit on the Citizens Advisory Council by the governor, as well as I sit on the state's Environmental Justice Council and the National Environmental Justice Advisory Board. So we get a chance to see a lot of the concerns, not only in the Commonwealth, but around the United States. And when we look at environmental justice issues, we see that the issues are different depending on the geography of where people are. However, the end result is generally the same, is that it's of impacting people who are poor, minority, folks who are disenfranchised and do not have a great deal of representation. And the big part of my testimony today is to support our efforts to pull together a Environmental Justice Commission here in the city, so we can have greater tools and resources to assess how to best serve the people who are most vulnerable in these regards. When I work on the EJAB, we have some guiding principles, and they are to be proactive in our environmental justice issues relative to the state, to eliminate any existing environmental disparities, particularly in minority and low-income communities, to encourage, educate, and empower minority and low-income communities to become active participants in the permit and legislative process, to ensure equitable enforcement of regulations and statutes, and most importantly, to enhance the research and assessment approaches of how communities themselves can stay healthy and vibrant and protect themselves against environmental disparities. So again, we support the efforts to establish a commission around this environmental justice concerns. We want the tools to be able to line up with what's happening in the state, as well as our ability to connect with even national goals. And we want to make sure that we create the social architecture that enables it to become the new normal for communities to be able to help themselves relative to environmental disparities. So thank you so much for the brief moment to speak to you today.
I thank you all for your testimony and for your choice to be in this space, because it really is the future. Any questions from members of the committee?
Yes.
Please, Councilman Al Teutenberger.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And Mr. Shabazz, you're the Executive Director of YASTEC?
Yes.
And what is that?
JASTEC is a not-for-profit organization. It's an acronym, actually. It stands for Juveniles Active in Science and Technology.
Okay, very good. I mean, that's why I think sometimes I might propose a bill against acronyms, because not everyone understands them or knows them. But I really appreciate that you've explained that, and I appreciate your work. I also appreciate the fact that you're here today and giving up of your time to come forward and give us, the sense of your opinion and your experience.
Sure. We've done things with you in the past around agronomy. You always tell everyone you're an agronomist. And
I am. I'm glad somebody remembers I'm an agronomist.
And so we do projects with Penn State Extension.
Yeah, we've met
quite a
before,
few times.
But this is very helpful.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, thank you.
You're very welcome, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the committee? For the benefit of the members of the committee, this bill, if passed, will create a commission focused on environmental justice. It will also be required to create a report and a list of recommendations for addressing environmental injustice across Philadelphia. It is the expectation that this commission would be comprised of advocates, stakeholders, experts, and individuals who just care. You don't need a title. Most affected by environmental justice, namely the poor and people of color. So with that stated, we're going to, and there being no further questions and no further testimony, we will close our public hearing and go into a public meeting. The chair at this point will recognize my colleague, Councilwoman Bass, also in attendance today, for a motion on bill number 170712.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion that bill number 170712, that the amendments to this bill, that the amendments to bill number 170712 be adopted. These amendments have been circulated to the members of the committee.
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 170712 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries, and Bill number 170712 has been amended. The chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass for a motion on Bill number 170712 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion that Bill number 170712 as amended be adopted with a suspension of the rules.
Second. Okay, and so it has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 170712 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council will be suspended so as to permit first reading at our next scheduled session of Philadelphia City Council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries, and Bill number 170712 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation. And again, a request that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at our next scheduled session of Philadelphia City Council. So with that, we have taken action on a bill, and now I want to thank my colleagues for helping us get that part of this meeting done. Thank you very, very much. We will now end the public meeting and go back into a public hearing so that we can now hear testimony on Resolution 180706. We're going to ask the clerk to read the title of that resolution, and I'll proceed with the reading of our first set of witnesses.
Authorizing the Committee on the Environment to hold hearings on the state of the environment in 2018.
I thank you very, very, very much. We have a new stakeholder and leader in this space here in the city of Philadelphia, and I want to thank Haji Malumium for introducing all of us to Andrew L. Shea, who's the COO and member of RNG Energy. They'll be doing some incredibly busy, necessary work of constructing a new effort. When are you going to start that new effort? There you go. But the great news about this is that it was actually discussed during the days when President Verna was president of Philadelphia City Council. So to see this effort come to fruition is a big deal. Thank you very, very much. Let's call up our first panel for hearing testimony on Resolution 180706 on the state of the environment. We're going to start with Christine Knapp, and again, I'm going to lean on all witnesses to please honor the clock and offer 2 minutes of testimony on this topic. Christine Knapp, you're up.
Thank you, Councilwoman. As I previously said, I'm Christine Knapp, Office of Sustainability Director. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on the state of the environment in Philadelphia. And again, thank you to the Councilwoman for your continuing leadership. The Office of Sustainability is responsible for GreenWorks, a vision for a sustainable Philadelphia, which aims to make Philadelphia a sustainable city for all. Today, I'm happy to share with you some success stories in each of our GreenWorks vision areas and some priorities for the coming year, and I'll try to keep it to 2 minutes. Vision 1 of GreenWorks is that all Philadelphians have access to healthy, affordable, and sustainable food and drinking water. This year, the Food Policy Advisory Council updated the Good Food Caterer Guide and the Philly Food Finder Guide, provided briefings to council members on food resources and childhood nutrition, and gathered feedback on the process for creating an urban agriculture plan for the city. We were recently awarded a William Penn Foundation grant to support the creation of this urban ag master plan, which we will embark upon this year. To increase water access, we recently installed hydration stations in publicly accessible areas of the Municipal Services Building and One Parkway Building. The Hydrate Philly project helped to get 20 hydration stations installed in parks and recreation facilities throughout the city, and the Water Department continues to educate residents about lead pipes and offer no-interest loans for lead pipe replacement. Vision 2 is that all Philadelphians breathe healthy air inside and outside. This past year, partners at the Air Management Services Division of the Health Department installed 54 air monitors in targeted areas of the city to assess street-level pollution and identify potential solutions where pollution is high. We know one source of pollution comes from our vehicles, so the city is pursuing a clean fleet plan for the municipal fleet this year and will be submitting applications to the Volkswagen Settlement Fund to support purchase of cleaner vehicles. Vision 3 is that all Philadelphians efficiently use clean energy that they can afford. This year, we also finalized Powering Our Future, a clean energy vision for Philadelphia, after the open comment period. We also released a Clean Energy Vision Action Plan that outlines immediate next steps the city can take to meet our energy and climate goals. We move forward with the implementation of several strategies identified in the Municipal Energy Master Plan, including the Art Museum Energy Efficiency Project and the Renewable Power Purchase Agreement that was just approved earlier today. We also published Solar Rooftops, a map that enables residents and businesses to estimate the solar potential of their rooftops. And we continue to support energy efficiency projects both in city buildings through our Energy Efficiency and Sustainability Fund and through the benchmarking program for the city's largest commercial and multifamily buildings. Vision 4 is that all Philadelphians are prepared for climate change and reduce carbon pollution. This summer, I mentioned earlier, we conducted a climate resiliency project in Hunting Park, a community that experiences temperatures that are as much as 22 degrees hotter than in other neighborhoods. We surveyed over 530 residents to understand how they currently experience heat and what they'd like to see happen in their neighborhood to help it cool it down. With community input, we're creating a heat plan for Hunting Park that we hope to release in the next few months. In fighting climate change, you probably heard that Philadelphia won the Bloomberg American Cities Climate Challenge grant. And while details about this challenge are still being finalized, we know the program is going to help us scale up carbon reductions from the buildings and transportation sectors. And we look forward to sharing more with you on that work in the coming months. Vision 5 is that all Philadelphians benefit from park trees, stormwater management, and healthy waterways. The Philadelphia Water Department continues to implement Green City Clean Waters, projects on parks, schoolyards, sidewalks, and vacant lots to reduce harmful runoff, but to provide other triple bottom line benefits to our city. The rebuild team is incorporating sustainability building standards into their work to ensure investments are aligned with our climate mitigation and resiliency goals. And Tree Philly just received a TD Bank donation to expand that program's reach this coming year. We'll be embarking on updating the city's tree canopy map and setting a new plan for increasing Philadelphia's tree canopy, particularly in the areas that need it the most. Vision 6 is that all Philadelphians have access to safe, affordable, and low-carbon transportation. Just last month, the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure, and Sustainability released Connect, Philadelphia's strategic transportation plan, which sets goals to make our streets safer for cyclists, pedestrians, and other low-carbon commuters, as well as increasing the accessibility of public transportation. Already, Indigo has announced a major expansion, and SEPTA is moving ahead with the redesign of the bus network, both of which will increase access to low or no carbon transportation options. Vision 7 is that all Philadelphians waste less and keep our neighborhoods clean. We are proud to be part of the Zero Waste and Litter Cabinet and their work this year in creating the Litter Index, rounding up over 8,000 illegal signs and implementing zero waste events. In fact, this year we diverted over 23 tons of organic materials from the landfill at events like the Broad Street Run and the Marathon. FPAC worked with the Cabinet on a compost design competition to help identify new compost system types that could be used by community gardens and farms, and then distributed these systems through a mini grant program. Next year, we're hoping to launch a community-scale composting program throughout the city. Lastly, Vision 8 is that Philadelphians benefit from sustainability education, employment, and business opportunities. Our most critical partner in this effort is the School District of Philadelphia and their Green Futures program, which is advancing sustainability in the district operations and in their curriculum. Our friends at the Philadelphia Energy Authority are also working with the district on solar training as part of the Philadelphia Energy Campaign, which aims to create 10,000 energy jobs. And PowerCorps PHL continues to train disconnected youth to prepare them for green careers. All of this work demonstrates that cities like Philadelphia continue to lead on sustainability. And while we can do a lot, we can't do all that is necessary to fight climate change without federal action. That's why we've also pushed back this year on the rollback of the Clean Power Plan and the fuel efficiency standards, and we will continue to push for smart regulations that protect our planet and our residents at the state and federal level. We know there's a lot more work ahead of us. We're excited to keep you posted about the progress that we're making and how you can partner with us, as well as with the community and with other advocacy organizations. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the committee? I'm most struck by the observation or the fact data around Huntington Park. So what are your initial strategies to attack that unfortunate reality?
Yes, so we've again surveyed the residents to ask them what they thought the solutions would be. We don't want to sort of jump to conclusions. We did certainly get a lot of feedback that residents are interested in trees. I think there's a perception in Philadelphia that neighborhoods that don't have a lot of trees, it's because the residents don't want them, and that is not the case. In Hunting Park, the eastern side of the neighborhood is primarily Spanish-speaking, and up until about a year ago, we never had any materials about how to get a tree translated into Spanish.
Okay.
So as soon as those materials became available, there's been tree plantings going on
Increase.
in those Spanish-speaking communities at a higher rate. So that was sort of one barrier that we've identified, that, and the community members there are looking for more tree plantings, and they are coming. We just planted 47 about 2 weeks ago in
Is that
Hunting
right?
Park. That we also have hearing from folks about their interest in cool roofs. We know that blacktop roofs, draw heat into the home. The problem there is that a lot of homes are in older condition, and you need to have a stable roof to be able to put a white roof coat on it. So sometimes there's more investment that needs to be made in the home than just the roof. So we're working with several partners to understand how we could bring basic system home repair programs or other programs to those homes to enable the white roof to then be put on after the fact. So there's a number of different strategies, whether that's, cool transportation options that give people access to bikes, or corridors that are tree lined to help them get from point A to point B, cooling centers as a strategy. There's, sort of a whole list of ideas that we're now working with the community to really put detail behind.
My second and final question is, to what extent is your office intimately involved and infused in rebuild?
So as I mentioned in my testimony, we've been writing sustainable building standards for rebuild, so that when any investments into a physical building, at a rec center or a library is done, they will be using our building standards to make sure that the building envelope is to the right degree, that the HVAC system is being considered as most energy efficient as possible, that the lighting is upgraded to LEDs. So those standards are being, as you said, intimately integrated into rebuild. There's other climate resiliency and green stormwater infrastructure and other concerns that we're also advancing, but the part that I think is most integrated in is that those standards are going to be required.
Okay, it's really important because those dollars are a shot in the arm, and we need to maximize the use of those in a way that has long-term environmental benefits as well.
And I think investing in the resiliency of the building would make it so that we don't have to do this kind of shot in the arm, in 20 years, right? That these buildings are protected and will be able to withstand the hotter and wetter weather that we know climate change will bring for Philadelphia.
For the long haul. Okay, then. Thank you very, 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 very much. First panel up, Alex
Madam Chair,
Dews.
just-
Please, Councilman.
Just a point of
Kaltenberger.
information.
Okay.
One, a quick thank you for your leadership on this entire matter. I want to be on the record of this
I
environment.
enjoy it.
And Ms. Knapp, I really want to thank you for your expert testimony. It's quite helpful. My comment from your agronomic council colleague is that a tree-lined street will always be quieter. It will be several degrees cooler, and real estate values will be several $1,000s higher, just on a tree-lined street. Nothing further about the house itself. Those three things make a difference in a neighborhood.
And
Thank you.
educating to this environmental injustice discussion, educating citizens about that reality moves the needle a little for the poor and those in underserved communities.
Absolutely.
Is PHS still in the tree planting business that they have every spring?
Yes, the Horticultural Society still does, I think, a spring and a fall tree planting. The city's, obviously, Tree Philly program also does giveaways. There are different points of the year. The two planting seasons are really in the fall and the spring. So those are when we usually see the biggest tree planting events going on.
And Ms. Knapp, if I could ever be of any help to talk to any neighborhood group about the benefits of tree planting as a street tree, please call on me. I'd be happy to meet with anybody at any time.
I appreciate that. And just
You're
to
welcome.
draw connections around some of these, when we look at the tree canopy map and we look at that heat map I mentioned, there's a clear correlation. And so, but when we were in Hunting Park, folks who had a predisposition against a tree, once they understood the value related
Correct.
to heat, immediately said, forget it, I want the tree. I forget about my previous complaint, I actually really want the tree now. So it is about education.
And any time, if I can help in that educational process and see people with greater enlightenment on that topic, count on me. I'm there.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine
Thank
Knapp.
you.
Panel, first up, Alex Dews, Green Building United, Matt Walker, Clean Air Council, Eliza Kelston Alford, Sustainable Business Network, Molly Michael, Moms Clean Air Force. Following that panel will be Jim Wally of the Sierra Club, Pratima Agrawal, Ready for 100, Karen Melton, and James Best. You'll be up next. Welcome back, Alex Dews.
Thank you very much.
Please each state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Reynolds Brown and members of the committee. My name is Alex Dews, and I'm the Executive Director of Green Building United. I want to also start by thanking you, Councilwoman, for your leadership on this issue over a number of years, and congratulate all of you and the Office of Sustainability on the passage of the Power Purchase Agreement. That's a really important
Big
step
deal.
forward for the city of Philadelphia. And I think as the federal government looks at a Green New Deal, there's going to be a lot to draw on from the example here in Philadelphia of all the good work that's happening in this area. So congrats to all the advocates as well for making that happen. We're the region's leading green building organization, and we promote the development of buildings that are sustainable, healthy for inhabitants, resilient and cost-effective, and we focus on buildings and the people that live and work in them to significantly reduce energy use and waste and mitigate climate and environmental impacts that affect all Philadelphians. Residents here in Philly are already being threatened by the effects of climate change, especially those who are already most vulnerable to health problems caused by poor air quality, high heat days, as well as those most affected by the rising costs to heat, cool, and maintain buildings. And even in the most optimistic climate forecast for the decades ahead, these impacts are going to increase significantly here. In the absence of the federal leadership, Philadelphia has stepped up to the plate to fight climate change by setting ambitious goals to reduce citywide carbon emissions 80% by the year 2050, and the Office of Sustainability released Powering Our Future last year, which is a vision for how Philadelphia is actually going to get there. This report's data analysis and modeling shows that while every bit of progress is important on the way to achieving these reductions, buildings are still the primary driver of climate change in our region and the best opportunity to mitigate and adapt to the future and current climate impacts we'll see. Green Building United is excited to continue to support the action steps that are required for Philadelphia to meet its carbon reduction goals through existing strategic initiatives and state and local legislative advocacy efforts. In the years ahead, we intend to grow the impact of the Philadelphia 2030 district to its full potential, to cement the improved efficiency from our newly adopted building energy codes, and expand our legislative advocacy priorities to the residential sector for the benefit of Philadelphia homeowners and renters. So a lot more in my written testimony, but just to summarize, in the year ahead, we'll be looking at moving towards residential energy disclosure to complement the commercial building disclosure that we have in place already. So essentially assigning a miles per gallon to the homes that we live in to help people understand what the full cost of ownership or leasing in a space is. And also be looking at building, commercial building tune-up opportunities to continue to improve the efficiency of our large commercial buildings because we've got a lot more opportunity there. We're still wasting about 30% of what gets used in commercial buildings. So again, a place where the city is leading by example and a lot of great progress that we can replicate in the commercial sector. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions, but thank you again for the opportunity and for your leadership on the issue.
Good afternoon, Matt Walker.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown and members of the committee for having me. My name is Matt Walker, and I'm the Advocacy Director of Clean Air Council. The council has been working to protect everyone's right to breathe clean air for over 50 years and has 37,000 activist members, including many in the Philadelphia area. I also serve in the steering committee of Green Justice Philly. According to the recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, we only have 11 years to cut greenhouse gas emissions 45% by 2030 to avoid catastrophic climate change. The recently released fourth National Climate Assessment found that climate change has already increased ground level ozone across the country, and levels are expected to increase more in the future. The Philadelphia area continues to struggle to meet federal standards for ground level ozone. Given the current dismal state of our region's air quality and impacts stemming from climate change, we must make unprecedented, rapid, and aggressive transitions in all sectors of our economy to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. The city has demonstrated leadership on air quality and climate change with several recent actions like the Solar Power Purchase Agreement, thank you, Solarize Philly, and the Clean Energy Vision, to name a few. These are all great steps, but City Council must do more, do it more quickly, and make sure what it does is as effective as possible. Proposals like PGW's LNG plant threaten to lock us into additional decades of reliance on natural gas far longer than the IPCC deadline. The proposal also conflicts with the city's clean energy vision. The amount of time and public resources going into this project could be much better spent on renewable energy or energy efficiency projects. Another environmental concern is the inadequate remediation planning process at the Philadelphia Energy Solutions refinery as highlighted in a recent Kleinman Center for Energy Policy report. Sunoco is liable for remediating the historic levels of contamination at the refinery. Sunoco has denied local residents, city agencies, and elected officials the opportunity to provide input on the remediation plans. The DEP has quickly approved Sunoco's analysis and weak cleanup standards for 8 of the 11 sites at the refinery property. Given the proximity of the refinery to environmental justice neighborhoods and the major environmental impacts, the lack of public input so far is unacceptable. According to the report, PES is likely to go bankrupt again by 2022 when its debts mature. It is imperative that the City of Philadelphia, area residents, labor, and other stakeholders engage in a process to ensure proper remediation and also explore alternative redevelopment scenarios at the refinery sites so that the future uses can inform adequate remediation planning for the parcels. Another environmental concern is the large source of illegal air pollution from trucks, buses, and cars when they idle. Philadelphia's own fleet of nearly 6,000 vehicles also contribute to this problem. Lastly, plastic bag usage and littering in Philadelphia creates eyesores in our neighborhoods and increases demand for polluting petrochemical facilities that make them. Every year, Philadelphia uses almost 1 billion plastic bags, and the city spends millions of dollars to clean up littered bags. In response to the above issues, Clean Air Council urges City Council to take the following actions. Increase funding for air management services. Urge PGW to evaluate the potential long-term economic benefits of entering into an on-site solar power purchase agreement at its Passyunk plant property. Delay any decision on the PGW LNG plant until after City Council and city departments have fully evaluated the long-term business plan for PGW that fully transitions it off of fossil fuel natural gas. Demand that DEP allow public input into remediation plans for the PES refinery site. Adopt a resolution requiring the Philadelphia Parking Authority, Philadelphia Police Department, and Air Management Services to fully enforce the city's existing idling laws by issuing tickets, and for each city agency to train their employees and develop an anti-idling policy that complies with the law. Support Councilman Squill's upcoming bill to ban plastic bags and place a small fee on all other single-use bags. In addition, there are a number of policies outlined in the clean energy vision that City Council should propose as soon as possible. Density bonuses for new construction that include solar, tax abatement for solar and energy efficiency projects in newer modified buildings, municipal impact fees for developers who do not meet environmentally conscious design standards, reducing the building energy benchmarking threshold to 25,000 square feet, require property owners to get building tune-ups in which a professional identifies energy and cost-saving measures that can be quickly implemented, require commercial and residential building owners selling property to meet the current energy conservation code at the time of sale, subject to technical feasibility, require homeowners to disclose residential energy scores in the multiple listing service, reevaluate potential additional permit streamlining for solar projects, explore additional power purchase agreements with the city's energy office and the Philadelphia Energy Authority, especially on-site projects in or near Philadelphia. I look forward to City Council taking visionary and creative actions to advance Philadelphia's clean energy future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
The testimony, and then we'll open it up to questions and comments.
Thank you, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown and members of the Environment Committee for your time today and the opportunity to testify. I'm Eliza Alford, the Government Relations Manager for the Sustainable Business Network of Greater Philadelphia. SBN is a community of local independent businesses that demonstrate the degree to which businesses can build profitable enterprises while serving community needs, sharing wealth, and protecting the environment. Our mission is to build a just, green, and thriving economy. As a business organization, our concern for the state of the environment comes from our understanding that environmental, social, and economic systems are fully interdependent. We cannot continue to compromise our natural resources and overlook the needs of our communities in order to profit in the short term. Instead, we must take the long view, understanding that we have an immense opportunity to innovate and grow our economy sustainably and equitably by investing in solutions that benefit people, planet, and profit. Philadelphia is quickly being recognized as a leader in sustainability, and we applaud the Council's role in helping move the city forward. SBN and its members see the areas of energy, water, and food as key to moving along the path to a just, green, and thriving economy, but for the sake of time, I'll only address water in my testimony this afternoon, and our other priorities are included in our written testimony. As climate change creates wetter seasons in our region, stormwater management will become even more important for protecting our rivers, streams, and tributaries. Green City Clean Waters, Philadelphia's long-term control plan for stormwater management, is the perfect example of an innovative, sustainable solution to a critical problem. It improves water quality and creates green space in all communities, improving air quality, reducing heat island effects, lowering carbon emissions, and providing safe, healthy places for residents to enjoy the outdoors. Additionally, the plan has led to a thriving, internationally recognized industry working right here in Philadelphia. Green City Clean Waters has been successful over the last 7 years, and we need to double down on our commitment. By promoting interagency coordination, creating a strong accountability structure, and continuing to develop incentives for private sector investment, we will see the full triple bottom line benefits that the program can provide, including making our streets safer, creating green space within walking distance of all Philadelphians, streamlining capital projects, and continuing to support a strong local economy. Green City Clean Waters can be a model for how to build a sustainable, equitable, and resilient city. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. SBN appreciates your proactive approach and is excited to continue working with Council to build a just, green, and thriving Philadelphia.
Molly Michael, Moms Clean Air Council, welcome back.
Good afternoon. My name is Molly Michael. I'm the Pennsylvania Field Organizer for Moms Clean Air Force, a community of more than 95,000 moms and dads in Pennsylvania united against air pollution to protect our children's health. Thank you for allowing me to speak at this hearing today. Today, I'd like to focus on a topic that we don't talk about in Philadelphia as often as we should, and that is natural gas fracking pollution, including methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas that we know is a major contributor to climate change. Until recently, with the problem-riddled construction of the Mariner East 2 pipeline, Philadelphians have had the luxury of living far away from well pads, pipelines, compressor stations, pigging stations, cryogenic plants, and other natural gas infrastructure that has plagued the southwestern part of our state for more than a decade. Here in Philly, we have by and large been able to turn a blind eye to the human cost of our energy consumption and dependence on fossil fuels. Now that the natural gas industry is creeping into our backyard, including a proposal to build a liquefied natural gas plant in southwest Philadelphia and the SEPTA natural gas plant in Nicetown, we can't afford to ignore it anymore, particularly as methane emissions are on the rise in Pennsylvania and beyond, and as the federal government rolls back environmental protections of all kinds. Pennsylvania is the second largest producer of natural gas in the nation, and thus a significant contributor of natural gas pollution, including benzene, diesel emissions, formaldehyde, particle pollution, silica dust, smog, and that potent greenhouse gas, methane. Because air pollution can travel long distances, people's health can be affected even hundreds of miles from the associated pollution. I'm sure many of us noticed the haze that settled over Philadelphia about 10 days ago that was attributed to the wildfires in California. That haze should drive home the fact that even if we can't see it or smell it, Philadelphians are impacted every day by the estimated 500,000 tons of methane pollution currently leaking from oil and gas operations across the state. As we continue to look toward a clean energy future, we must also address these leaks from oil and gas, hold bad industry actors responsible, and promote the health and well-being of the hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvanians who are suffering severe impacts of these operations every day. More importantly, Philadelphia should not be looking at proposals or approving permits that in any way increase our dependence on fossil fuels, particularly one that emits such a dangerous climate pollutant like methane. In June, in a huge first step to address our methane crisis, Governor Wolf issued new general permits to limit methane pollution for future and modified sources, and will be introducing a proposal next month to address the more than 11,000 existing sources of methane in the state. In this toxic culture of polluters over people, Philadelphia's legislative decision makers need to take bold action now, protect the health and well-being of our children, cease new investments in fossil fuel infrastructure, and look toward a clean, safe energy future. Thank you.
I thank you too, and I thank you for honoring the clock. Alex, could you speak about the monitoring? Your testimony spoke to where we are doing fairly well on the commercial side, but now there's a keen interest to do that on the residential side. Could you just elaborate on that for us?
Sure. So about 5 years ago, Philadelphia became one of a handful of cities that requires large property owners to benchmark energy and water usage in their buildings. And
That was our bill, thanks to Haji Malumium and others.
correct. Yes. Thank you very much for that. So we have a lot of information about how those buildings perform relative to their peers.
Excellent.
That information is all publicly available and mapped, so anybody can look at it. And it's really helped the commercial building owner industry to take stock of the opportunity to make the improvements, to understand those investments pay for themselves really quickly. So what we're looking at now is to move that into the residential sector, where it's a little bit of a different question of how to do that monitoring, but there are a lot of tools available that have been developed by the Department of Energy and elsewhere that help to do assessment of the relative performance, the efficiency of a home. So by putting that, it's kind of a consumer awareness piece of information to get that into the hands of potential buyers or lessees of space so that they can understand what the full cost of ownership is, because as you all know, one of the leading causes of eviction can be that people can't keep up with utility bills. So by doing this at time of transaction, it becomes a negotiating point, and it's more likely that the kinds of investments that can make a big difference in energy performance in homes, those investments will be made as part of the negotiation, much less likely that that happens outside of that time period.
Okay. Well, my office, my staff and I look forward to drilling down and coming up with real language that moves us towards that goal. That too can become an environmental injustice if not done right. Thank you very much. My colleagues should know that Matt Walker worked very, very closely with my office around doing MBET Week, Med Week, whereby we wanted to inform citizens that having contractors who practice sustainable practices matter also during Minority Business Enterprise Week. So I want to salute the work that you did with my office. I'm pleased to hear that Councilman Squilla is still working on the plastic bags bill.
Yep.
So it's taking a minute, but it's best to try to get it right instead of just doing it.
Right.
Pleased to hear about that. Speak about municipal impact fees. Was that in your one of your recommendations?
Yeah, and this is one of the recommendations from the Clean Energy Vision for developers who would not meet environmentally conscious design standards. They would be assessed a fee.
Well, there are other municipalities already have that practice?
I believe so, but I can follow up with you.
Could you please?
Yeah, sure.
Because we can look to see what lessons are learned from other municipalities. That aids us in how to do it right.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, then. And then with Eliza, incentives for triple bottom line investments, incentives such as what?
Sorry. So incentives for investment in private development of green stormwater infrastructure. So for example, one that we already have is a density bonus for private developers who include rain gardens. So thinking about other either legislation that encourages those or other grant programs through the water department to help encourage private developers to manage stormwater on their sites, or maybe even include stormwater from the public right-of-way in managing on their sites, and thinking about banking and trading to help include public right-of-way stormwater management.
So then you're actively engaged with officials at the water department towards those goals?
Yes, SBN works closely with officials across the water department on Green City Clean Waters and helping them work directly with our members in the GSI Partners Program to connect them on what the industry really is looking for and needs from the water department to make the program really successful.
Okay. Well, we've done a lot of work with Mom's Clean Air Council. We just need to grow that membership by about 50,000. I want to thank you all for your testimony. Thank you any questions from members of the committee? Councilwoman Bass.
Well, I just wanted to, number one, thank everybody for their testimony thus far. I actually have to leave chambers for some other business, but I wanted to, number one, thank everyone who has testified thus far. I fully intend to read all of the testimony that's been submitted and to catch, the testimony this evening on the cable access channel, which I happen to be very, very familiar with. So I'll be watching this evening as well. But the other thing I just wanted to make mention of, and Councilwoman Brown and I were really on the same page with some of the questions that you just asked, because Mr. Walker, with the recommendations that you made, it's one thing to be upset or against a particular policy, but it's a whole nother thing to be armed with suggestions, ideas, things that we can take away from a hearing so that we can, get some sort of direction from you as well. That's very important to us as members of council because I always tell people, please don't assume that I know that your street didn't get shoveled or plowed or whatever. We need to hear from you. And that's the way this works best, is that when we hear from you and we have an opportunity based on recommendations that are made to us from the public to actually implement things that are going to make a huge difference in the city of Philadelphia. So I have circled and checked off a number of items on your list here that I think could really be beneficial to the city of Philadelphia. So I just really wanted to thank you for that as well. So thanks, everyone.
It's an excellent list. It really,
is.
really is. Any other questions, comments? So, Matt, what I'm going to ask you is to ID the top three and then have a conversation with Julian and give us our assignment for 2019, okay?
Top 10, got it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next panel, Jim Wiley of the Sierra Club. Pratima, I want you to pronounce your last name for me so that I get it right. Karen Melton and Charles Best. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Ready to go?
Is this your first time, all of you, to the chambers?
It's the first time I've testified, yeah.
Oh, well, welcome.
This is my second time.
Forgive me?
This is my second time.
Okay. Now, please pronounce your last name for me.
Agarwal.
Okay, I'm phonetically.
Agarwal.
Okay, all right then. That's helpful. All right, please. Jim Wiley, Sierra Club.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much. My name is Jim Wiley. I'm the volunteer chair of the Sierra Club's Southeastern Pennsylvania group. Southeastern Pennsylvania being the greater Philadelphia area, the 5 counties around it, including Philadelphia. I'm shooting for 1 minute here. The Sierra Club has a broad scope with expertise and resources that cover a wide range of issues, research, legal advisors, organizers, conservation activists, and outings leaders. I hope you will not hesitate to take advantage of these resources whenever you think they might be of service to this committee. In the Philadelphia area, we primarily rely on volunteer leaders to set our priorities. We are not given direction to focus on this or that from state or national program managers. We are truly volunteer-led and staff-supported. Sierra Club's 2019 priorities are, in the greater Philadelphia area, 100% renewable energy, goal setting, transition planning, and promoting momentum-shifting actions like the PPA we did this morning. Thank you. 2, plastics, reduction of single-use plastics, for example, bags, bottles, straws, and takeout containers, through education, alternatives, promotion, listening, and research, and suggesting and supporting legislation, with a goal of reducing litter, landfill, and incinerator contributions. And 3, lastly, public transportation, public transit. Explore ways that we can work together to reduce the region's transportation carbon footprint by increasing mass transit ridership, increased electrification, and using renewable sources for that electricity. We look forward to working with the Philadelphia City Council, the Mayor's Office, SEPTA, PGW, other environmental organizations that I expect you'll hear similar priorities today, suburban municipal governments and institutions, and of course, volunteers and activists that make up our communities. Certainly, if we have programs that spread across the region, it'll be more powerful than cherry-picking specific municipalities. Of course, there will be other projects and initiatives that engage Sierra Club volunteers, but these are the ones that we'd like to highlight at this time. I'm hoping you hear some consistent priorities from others that testified today. On behalf of the Sierra Club and the Southeast Pennsylvania Group's Executive Committee, thank you very much.
Very, 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 very much, Jim Wiley, for honoring the clock. You should know that SEPTA is thrilled to hear what you're saying. I know because they're actually represented here. So I believe in connecting the dots. And so when you can, you want to meet City Council's representative for SEPTA, Ms. Wendy Prescott. I want to thank SEPTA for their presence here today. And you can put the name with the face. Okay? All righty. Thank you very much. Please, next.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman and the committee. My name is Pratima Agarwal. I'm a Kensington resident and a volunteer with the Philadelphia Ready for 100 campaign of the Sierra Club. We are an all-volunteer-run campaign with a mission to help transition the City of Philadelphia to 100% clean, renewable energy in an equitable way. Since January of 2017, we have been sounding the alarm about the need for the city to move away from fossil fuels and embrace the benefits that come with a green economy. We're not alone in seeing the urgency of this transition. In October 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change special report said we could be facing a global climate crisis as early as 2040, maybe sooner. Most recently, the federal government issued the 4th National Climate Assessment Report, which states that past predictions about the impacts of global warming have materialized, that these impacts are tied to each other, and will negatively affect our economy. In addition, many coastal cities are particularly unprepared for rising sea levels. Our air quality will continue to deteriorate, and our water supply threatened by antiquated drainage and sewer systems, unable to handle heavier loads of precipitation for more big storm events. These factors are further problematic for a city like Philadelphia, already ranked 12th for particle pollution, with many neighborhoods in low-lying areas prone to flooding, and the poorest large city in the U.S. The state of Philadelphia's environment is already bad and on a path to becoming significantly worse if we do not act now. Our campaign has had some successes in the past year, including helping to support City Council's Municipal Energy Bill number 180965 for the state's largest power purchase agreement. Congratulations on this first step, and thank you for your leadership. But our campaign has not been without challenges. We have found it difficult to create a sense of urgency around the imminent crisis of climate change among city officials in order to prompt action before it's too late. We have seen repeated neglect of environmental justice for neighborhoods most negatively impacted by fossil fuels and climate change. And we have seen a reluctance towards goal setting in spite of many other major cities already having done so. We have to ask ourselves why that is. Does it require a major environmental disaster to wake up to reality? I certainly hope not. We only need to look to the California wildfires to know that we do not want our city on the back end of devastating climate crisis. So let's be proactive. The Ready for 100 team is ready to move forward into 2019 as an ally to the city. We hope to hold a hearing in early 2019 in support of the Office of Sustainability's Municipal Energy Master Plan, which sets a municipal goal for 100% renewable electricity. Later, we hope to have a hearing on setting a citywide goal of 100% renewable electricity. We hope to work with all of you and other council members to draft legislative proposals we have started in our action plan, which is included with my testimony. We plan to partner with CDCs, NECs, and community organizations to hold educational events. And we also plan to increase our outreach to small and large businesses. And finally, we want to build support for transitioning PGW away from fossil fuels. Our team is offering 3 different recommendations to do this. 1, transition PGW into a clean energy generation utility. 2, transition PGW into a clean energy storage facility. And 3, explore the idea of participating in a regional clean energy transition plan by a third party. We're happy to meet with all of you to discuss these possibilities in more detail, and thank you for providing this platform today.
You're welcome. Before we move to Ms. Karen Melton, I want to thank the 2 of you for working with my office on the resolution where we're actually going to take a close look at the municipal master plan. Your work with us does not go unappreciated. Thank you. Have you sat with PGW? Have you registered your concerns formally with PGW?
Not at this moment. We are just starting.
So I would urge you to do exactly what you've done here. For me, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So to send a formal request asking for an opportunity, you can speak during your testimony, that would be in order. Can I hold people responsible for that which you've not brought to their attention? While this is an opportunity to do that, speaking directly to them as well at a commission hearing would be quite in order.
Great,
Okay?
thank you.
All right, then. Karen Melton?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I live in Northwest Philadelphia, and while I volunteer with a number of environmental organizations, I'm testifying today as a citizen. There's a lot going on right now that will help determine our city's energy future, but it's a mix of good and bad. As the fourth National Climate Assessment Report issued last week made clear, the impacts of climate change are already upon us. We have very little time in which to get off fossil fuels. There isn't time for new fossil fuel projects with 20 to 30-year operational horizons. The Renewable Energy Power Purchase Agreement for city-owned buildings and streetlights is a great step forward. In other positive news, SEPTA has issued its own RFP for renewable energy and recently received a grant for 10 electric buses in addition to the 25 already on order. However, at the same time, SEPTA has hundreds more diesel hybrid buses under contract to be delivered over the next several years. Those hundreds of diesel buses will be operating into the 2030s, and we don't have that much time. The SEPTA gas-fired power plant at Wayne Junction, which has a 6th Health Department permit appeal hearing session scheduled for January 8th, will be a new source of pollution in a community already burdened with significant air pollution, and a new source of carbon emissions for at least 20 years, and we don't have that much time. Philadelphia Gas Works has presented a proposal to the Gas Commission to partner with a private company to build a new liquefied natural gas facility at PGW's South Philadelphia plant that would operate for the next 25 years, and we don't have that much time. We need all hands on deck in Philadelphia, with every agency working toward a clean energy vision to reduce carbon emissions. City Council and this committee in particular needs to not just pass projects in support of the clean energy vision, it needs to prevent new fossil fuel projects from being built. That's really where we are in 2018. We just don't have much time. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. With the benefit of hindsight, which is always 2020, I'm thinking my staff and I probably should have made a request to have both PICO and PGW here. But this goes out to the world, and those who seek to register their interests make their own decisions. And so your recommendation is very, very well taken, and my staff and I would do follow-up in our own way. Thank you very much. Please, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown, and Cindy Bass is my council person, and
Okay.
Councilman Tannenberger, who's walking around the building somewhere. Oh, there. My name is Rhonda Lancaster. I am a 42-year resident of Germantown at the upside of Fern Hill Park. I live across the street from Fern Hill Park. The bottom of Fern Hill Park is across the street from the SEPTA gas plant. And I came at the last minute. Charles Best, who was supposed to be here, is not here. So I'm speaking to you today as a resident.
Surely. You're
I
welcome.
apologize for my outfit, but full disclosure, I work at the Croc Center across the street from the SEPTA depot. But I must say for the record, I do not represent the Croc Center.
Okay.
Okay?
Well,
So-
we appreciate your interest, quite frankly, and your willingness to show up
Sure, thank
as
you.
a citizen.
Thank you.
But state your full name. Did you give us your full name?
Rhonda Lancaster.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, thank you for the hearings today, and glad that I could be a part, racing down the last minute. So I have been involved with the campaign for, not having the gas plant per se at the Midvale Depot, because it is so close to everything. It's close to my job, near my house, my neighbors' homes. As I said, I've been there 42 years. Came there as a teenager with my family. And to see this come into our community is very troubling. There are a number of reasons I will not get into right now. But
We thank you. We thank you for that, because we
Yeah.
do want to honor the clock.
Right, sure, and that's what I'm trying to do. But the residents in the area where I live, which is at the top of Fern Hill Park, are very upset about this. We don't want the issues that come with a gas plant to invade our neighborhood. Someone was speaking about trees before. We had an aggressive 10 years ago tree planting campaign. It started with my house on the corner. I was the first person to get 3 trees on my property, well, my mother's property. She was living at the time. And everybody pretty much followed suit. We have been able to educate people, and even those who have moved out, passed on into the next generation, about the importance of having trees. So to me, it is hypocritical to have aggressive tree planting program, but you have smokestacks who are shooting pollutants into the air to destroy them. We have a park that has historical value. We have a house inside that park that was the model for the first White House when Philadelphia was the capital of Washington, D.C. Those things are at risk to be destroyed or be degraded, I think is the word I want to use, in terms of pollution, because you cannot control how the winds blow. Now, I want to add this to it. I have taken upon the task myself to speak to someone at the National Weather Service and also at the Weather Channel. Both entities have concluded that, and again, I'm not going to get into any legal stuff, but they have concluded that it is not a good idea because you can't control which way the wind blows. But we do know that the wind blows from west to east. It follows the jet stream. So here we are in the middle of all of this, and we just don't know. And then when you talk about the human factor, we already know this area has a high rate of asthma with children and the elderly. I have neighbors that suffer from asthma. I have a whole generation family across the street from me. They've had asthma from the person that's my age all the way down to the great-grandchildren who now have asthma. So this kind of thing compounds those kinds of issues. And then there are other issues. You know, we don't know how this is going to affect our water supply. We don't know how it's a lot. It's a lot involved with this, but overall, I can just say from a community standpoint, we don't want the gas plant.
Okay, let me just pose a couple of questions.
Sure.
Have you attended any of the community meetings where the designated parties have had a chance to talk about the technologies that come with addressing some of the legitimate concerns you've raised?
What I have attended is the L&I hearings.
Okay. Okay.
Because I only found out about this a year ago, and that's when I met Philly 350 and everybody else.
Okay.
Prior to that, I did not know, and it seems like I was the first one because when I talked to people in my community, nobody knew about it.
Okay, so then what would the recommendation be? That the interested parties do a better job of informing, alerting? I'm old school. You do leaflet dropping and you knock on doors and you let folk know that a community meeting is happening. Internet doesn't get people there all the time.
Right.
Particularly seniors who care,
Correct.
but are not on the internet.
Right.
So what would be your recommendation as an active citizen to those designated parties on how better to inform residents that this proposal is up for consideration? What would be your recommendation?
Okay, well, what I'm doing on my end is going into some streets in the area where people do not even know this is happening.
So you're knocking on doors or you're dropping off lit?
I'm talking to point people, I'll call them, in these particular blocks.
Okay.
We are in the process of setting up meetings so that people can know. We're also trying to coordinate with the 39th Police District so that people on the borderline of Nicetown are aware of this. Because we have another impending issue, and that is the Bud plant has just been sold. And the Croc Center sits on one part of that large parcel.
I'm aware.
Okay, so, yeah, I won't get into all that.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay?
Well, it's helpful to put those type of recommendations on the record, because there's some benefit in groupthink.
Yes.
And parties will, as Councilwoman Bass mentioned, will be watching the testimony on Channel 64, and may so be enlightened to follow your recommendations so that there is so that the awareness at the community level happens in a more compounded way.
And can I just...
One last thing, and then
yes,
we're up to
I know.
6 minutes.
Okay, one last thing. That's part of the problem. We don't have a coordinated effort.
And so guess what? You have been tagged.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I used to work in politics. I can handle it.
This is not just, in fact, this is less than politics.
Yeah, I know.
It's about community engagement
That's
around an issue that is going to make a difference in people's lives. Put politics, throw that out the window.
I was just saying I had a little
this
background in it.
This
that's
is activism at
Yes,
your most
absolutely.
fundamental level. So don't
Absolutely.
complain about it.
No,
Be
no.
about it. Tag, you're it.
all. Okay.
All right?
All right. Thank you,
then.
Council.
You're welcome. Thank you all very, 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 very much. Next panel, Mitch Channon, 350 Philadelphia, welcome. Mina Ravel, correct me when you get to the witness table, Lynn Robinson, Neighbors Against the Gas Plant, and Alex Lola of Penn Environment. Did you speak to Matt? Did you speak to Matt?
Sorry, I got to get my speech loaded up here. Thanks very much for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Mitch Channon. I serve on the steering committee of 350 Philadelphia, which is a grassroots organization dedicated to pushing for a rapid and just transition from all fossil fuels, including coal, oil, and natural gas, to renewable energy in order to protect a livable climate. I really appreciate so much of the testimony that's been offered already today, and I'm in full agreement with and support of the recommendations that have been made. I did want to offer very quickly an additional perspective from what Rhonda was saying. I don't think the issue right now that's facing us is informing people better about the gas plant. The issue is that people want the gas plant not to operate and for the permit to be revoked. So that wasn't going to be the main purpose of my testimony, but I did want to offer that.
Seize the moment.
We really appreciate the work that the Office of Sustainability and the Philadelphia Energy Authority are doing, but in 350 Philly, we have a very deep concern that the targets that the city has adopted are not adequate. There's been a lot of helpful reference to some of the recent climate reports that have been issued. The city's goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050 is not consistent with the Paris Climate Agreement. It is not consistent with the goal of limiting global warming to 2 degrees and especially not 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Office of Sustainability's Powering the Future report acknowledges that. It says, quote, to avoid the worst consequences of climate change, scientists are increasingly concluding that global emissions must follow an even faster trajectory. And it says elsewhere, climate science increasingly suggests we must work globally to cut carbon emissions as fast and as far as possible. But despite that acknowledgement, the 80 by 50 goal, as far as I understand, is still the basis for setting policy in the city of Philadelphia, and I'm not aware that there's any plan to update that goal. I would ask that the city conduct a full assessment based on science about what goal is appropriate, and then create a new target based on that goal, and then create climate protection plans that are consistent with that goal. In Manchester, in the UK, the city government collaborated with universities to do a rigorous assessment. They concluded that for them, the appropriate goal was to zero out carbon emissions completely within 20 years. And I hope that the city of Philadelphia will adopt a goal similar to that. I wanted to just finish by saying it may seem that transitioning that quickly is not politically feasible. It may seem that transitioning that quickly is not politically feasible, but I think a fundamental problem is that we're choosing goals based on what appears to be feasible politically rather than based on what is actually necessary. There's a growing call across the country for a so-called Green New Deal, which would be a massive federally funded and coordinated effort to transition to 100% renewable energy, to rebuild our transportation systems, buildings, and food systems in a period of a little more than a decade. Recently, earlier this month, Congressmember-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who represents parts of the Bronx and Queens, put forward a resolution to form a House Select Committee for a Green New Deal. That resolution is calling for creating a committee that would take 1 year to write legislation to accomplish the goals that I suggested. It includes some other really visionary and critically important provisions. It's calling for a guaranteed living wage job for every U.S. resident who wants one, and for climate policies to mitigate deeply entrenched racial, regional, and gender-based inequalities in income and wealth. I'm asking that council members individually and perhaps council as a group express support for the Green New Deal resolution. It now has 15 sponsors in Congress. If we can reach a critical mass, then that committee will be created and it will spend a year writing the legislation that we actually need that would make it possible for cities like Philadelphia to achieve the goals that are actually consistent with what science and justice demands. So I hope that council members will consider expressing support for the Green New Deal resolution and conveying that to Congressman Boyle and to Congressman Evans and to Congresswoman-elect Mary Gay Scanlon. So thanks very much.
You're very, very, very welcome, Ms. Chen. I have a little comment after we get through all the testimony. Don't go anywhere. Okay, please. Now, Mino, I know that you can talk for 24 hours on this issue. You
I like
live
being at
and
the
breathe this.
computer
Let
more.
me make my point. You live and breathe this stuff along with Mitch and Alex and Matt and Eliza and others, okay? I'm asking you to be mindful of the time because we have 3 more panels, okay? And I want to hear from everybody, okay? Very well.
First,
Please.
did you know it was 78 degrees here? Second,
Well, there's a lot of hot air in this.
maybe. Second, when Pratima mentioned transition plan for PGW, I have offered testimony to the Philadelphia Gas Commission on the subject. She didn't know that, maybe. And I'm going to speak anecdotally, but almost every sentence I say is a policy suggestion. What is the most pressing environmental issue facing us? Some seem to think it's litter or stormwater or air quality, but these are all symptoms of the global climate crisis and our addiction to fossil fuels. And it seems we have only 10 to 12 years to kick our habit. Some say we, the public, haven't shown enough outrage about the IPCC report, the report that alerts us to this 10 to 12-year timeline. Some say that we, the environmental groups, are too polite and rational. So I'd like to state that we are indeed enraged, outraged, and yes, fearful for all our futures, that people come to us asking what we should be doing. So those of us leading the climate movement in Philadelphia, people like me and Mitch, know that we're in this for the long haul, and that we need to remain calm and help solve the crisis we've gotten ourselves into. That's why you're not seeing outrage. So, what are fossil fuels? Well, we've heard of coal, oil, and gas, but I'd also like to list their derivatives, which are gasoline, diesel, and plastics. How do we use them? Most visible are our cars, trucks, and buses, by burning gasoline or diesel. Not so visible is the equipment in our basements, the boilers, furnaces, and water heaters. Also invisible are the distant power plants that burn coal, oil, and gas to generate electricity. So, how do we get off of fossil fuels? That's what we need to do. We need to decide to stop spending on anything that uses fossil fuels. We can do this each time we make a decision, which is what you all do every day. This means planning for every new car, truck, and bus that's sold to be electric starting today. Not just the city's fleet, but every car, truck, and bus, including SEPTA. It means when the boiler goes out on that cold morning, everyone knows that that oil or gas boiler will be replaced with an electric option, whether it's for our home, our schools, or our workplace. The homeowner, the contractor, and the utility, all of us need to be aware of and repeat the same message. Today, contractors are insisting and telling us that gas options are better, even when the decision maker is asking for an electric option. And when the hot water tank springs a leak in the basement, the same. We have to opt for an electric option. When there's talk of subsidizing a limping refinery or partnering to liquefy natural gas, the decision is simple. We just say no. It means planning for a municipally owned utility, PGW, to transition away from selling gas, another fossil fuel, to doing something else. People say, like what? It could be installing geothermal projects. Dave came up with that. It could be air sealing and insulating all our buildings in the city. It could be replacing all gas appliances with electric ones. We'll find a way together. Otherwise, we're all in deep water, and that's a little climate humor. Next up, plastics. Though not directly contributing to our greenhouse gas emissions, most of the plastic we use and dispose of ends up in our air, because most of our trash gets incinerated, people here. in our zero landfill goal, or it ends up in our waterways, from the Wissahickon Creek to the Schuylkill River to the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes,
Plastic is choking off all life.
yes.
So though very useful for things like eyeglasses, we need to curtail the use of the use once and throw away plastics. Things like forks and spoons, take-out containers, plastic bags, and disposable water bottles. So I'm going to be working with Councilman Squilla on that one. We'll start with the bags, and we'll start with the water cooler there. We're going to get city water here. You may ask how we're going to fund this effort. I mean, every day I get alerts about another institution divesting by shifting funds invested in fossil fuel companies to clean energy companies, to issuing green bonds, something the city can do, to setting up a public bank, something else the city can do. This sounds like an insurmountable task, I realize that, but I am living proof that it can be done. I live in an all-electric house with an electric bike and an electric car, and it's all charged by the soon-to-be installed solar panels on my roof, all emitting 0 greenhouse gases, all emissions-free. If only the bus I rode to get here today was also electric. That's you all. Perhaps we need to create a new committee here, say the Committee on the Climate Crisis. This could parallel the House Select Committee at the federal level, being led by Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez with the
Okay,
Green New
Mino,
Deal.
if I give you 10 minutes, I have to give everyone else 10 minutes.
Who
That's
wants to
not
step up to this? Well, there's no committee person here to ask. Who wants to step up to this Committee on the Climate Crisis? We could come up with one climate-related policy each week to deliberate over. The physicians say we need to act. The scientists say we need to act. Yesterday, I even learned that the lawyers, I met with a group of the Bar Association, they say we need to act. Let's focus and let's do it. Thank you.
Let us please hear from Lynn Robinson and Alex Lola, and then I'll have comments. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for holding this hearing. I would like to request a second hearing in January, which has more notice for the public, maybe a month's notice, so that we can have more participation. Okay, I sent in a laundry list of recommendations, but many of the people here have already said a bunch of stuff, so I have less to say for right now. Okay. Regardless of the science beliefs of our city's mayor, Philadelphia's legislative branch needs to reject any further fossil fuel influence. This means that if City Council accepts climate science, it must also accept the science of natural gas, which is a fossil fuel. That science has been obscured by gas lobbyists who talk about gas burning cleaner than coal and oil at the burning site. But what they don't talk about is the methane leakage all across the process, which makes natural gas the most warming of all fossil fuels. It is the worst for climate change, natural gas. And natural gas is being pushed all over the country, all over the state and the country, and into Philadelphia. The only methane that people should burn is the naturally occurring methane buildup, for example, in methane formation in landfills and water treatment plants. We can't avoid those buildups. They need to be burned because when you burn methane, it creates carbon dioxide, which is less warming to the atmosphere. Council needs to see that there's no such thing as a safe or benign project which burns a fossil fuel or manipulates toxic and flammable chemicals. You don't want to run anything except an electric car in a locked garage. Breathable air for people is about 4 miles up. Therefore, we should realize that gravity is keeping the air in and it's tighter than a locked garage. Therefore, we should sound the alarm if an additional polluting project is proposed in our limited space and find ways to shut down existing ones. Any new polluting project must, at this point in history, require a needs assessment to be deemed necessary for the common good, and then face a true and intelligent alternatives assessment which finds a non-burning, non-toxic method for accomplishing the project's goal. Alternative assessments, unlike the one done for SEPTA's gas plant in Nicetown, needs to look at practical and possible systemic changes over the long term to accommodate the alternative path. That includes the projected costs of improvement or erosion of public health and resulting economic instability or stability in the long term. In Philadelphia, City Council needs to transform PGW so that it's mandated to shift from natural gas to non-burning technologies for heating homes and buildings. People have talked about this here. It's going to need a new name. We also, I was going to propose that we have a City Council Office of Sustainability at the legislative level. I don't know if it should be called that, but there should be another body other than the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, because the Mayor's perspective may not match what the legislature needs to do. The most urgent priority for PGW is to seal its network of profusely leaking methane pipes, and it should abandon expansion of natural gas infrastructure, including the influx of minor and synthetic minor natural gas projects throughout the city. That is the LNG proposal that we've talked about, and also SEPTA's 6 proposed gas plants, one of which is in Nicetown, one of which is built, and there's 5 others in a list that they would like to do. We also hope that you will rethink replacing oil burners in schools with natural gas burners. That's a fossil fuel, and that's the proposal. That is not sustainable. We need electric running HVAC systems in the schools. Okay, so I just want to end with SEPTA's gas plants, since I'm the director of Neighbors Against the Gas Plants, whose major mission is to stop the one in Nicetown. SEPTA's CHIP project is an example of City Council being led by slick talk to let an unethical polluting project slide past. Whatever the past tense reasons, none of that matters now unless you still refuse at this point to see the mistake. Philadelphia has the nation's highest childhood mortality rate, and among major cities is the worst asthma capital. SEPTA's natural gas power plant in Nicetown is that extra drop in the bucket of environmental racism. Nicetown, and part of central North Philadelphia next to it, has the city's highest cancer and mental disease rates, lowest accessibility to walking and green spaces, and second highest childhood asthma hospitalization rate. Nicetown has high air toxicity levels coming from a mix of regular street traffic, Route 1 traffic, SEPTA's largest diesel bus depot, diesel burning CSX crude oil trains, a crematorium, etc. There's 37,000 people, 13 schools within a mile radius, countless daycare centers, churches, and their schools. 700 SEPTA employees work and often sleep overnight between shifts on the property next to this new polluting plant. And that's why the Transport Workers Union has come out in favor of our appeal to revoke SEPTA's air permit. Please find a way to admit the error. This is a city government error. It needs to be admitted. It's a mistake. And please shut the project down. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Alex Lola, Penn Environment.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here to speak today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be speaking or reading a letter on behalf of a coalition that is formed of environmental groups and individuals in the area that are opposed to the proposed liquefied natural gas plant in South Philly. We submitted this letter to Philadelphia City Council as well as to Philadelphia Gas Commissioners and Mayor Kenny just yesterday afternoon. Dear members of City Council, Gas Commissioners, and Mayor Kenny, we are writing to you to voice our opposition to PGW's recently proposed liquefied natural gas, LNG, public-private partnership at its Passyunk plant in South Philadelphia. This proposal is projected to allow PGW to liquefy, store, and transport up to 2.7 billion cubic feet of gas annually. Bringing new fossil fuel projects online will make it harder for Philadelphia to do its fair share to halt climate change, which is the greatest environmental threat facing the world and our city today. We are disappointed that such a proposal is being put forth, particularly on the heels of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report. The world's leading climate scientists are warning that there are less than a dozen years in which to act to avoid the worst effects of climate change, including widespread drought, devastating floods, extreme heat, and poverty for millions of people. IPCC scientists wrote that global warming pollution must be cut by 45% by 2030 and to zero by 2050. Natural gas is part of the problem, not the solution. The project is counter to the city's commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050 compared to 2006 levels. Already, Philadelphia's Powering the Future report acknowledges that we need a faster timeline for abandoning fossil fuels and reducing our global warming emissions. Many of the negative effects of climate change have already begun to plague our nation and our region, including Hurricanes Florence and Michael, record-breaking fires in California, and heat waves that forced early school dismissals in Philadelphia public schools at the start of this school year. It is imperative that we take decisive action now to halt climate change. The review process for the proposed LNG project has appeared fast-tracked with little attention to adequate public notification and input. A controversial project like this should allow for more time for comment, not less. We owe it to our children, our grandchildren, and the planet to address climate change with urgent and focused priority. We call on members of Philadelphia City Council to extend the timeline for reviewing this proposal, including public input opportunities, until after City Council has held a public hearing about the pathway for PGW to get completely off of fossil fuels, and until the city has fully analyzed how PGW could do so. This extension would allow the public time to digest the proposal and voice their concerns about the project. Second, we urge City Council members to vote no on this project, if and when it comes to you for review. We look forward to hearing from you on this important issue as soon as possible. Sincerely, 350 Philadelphia, Breathific, Clean Air Council, Clean Water Action, Delaware Riverkeeper Network, Green Justice Philly, Minal Ravel, Moms Clean Air Force PA Chapter, Neighbors Against the Gas Plants, Penn Environment, Philly Thrive, Physicians for Social Responsibility Philadelphia Chapter, Power, and Sierra Club Southeastern PA Group. Thank you very much.
Wow. That's what you call coalition building. It matters and it makes a difference. I need to say, first of all, your authentic enthusiasm, interest, and intellect around these issues is quite admirable and very much appreciated. Secondly, to Mitch, congratulations for being recognized by the Clean Water Action. Where are you? Kudos to you. Minal, you all should know, has been nominated for a Philly Sustainability Award. Is she not deserving? The answer would be yes. So we will certainly hope that you get that. Lynn Robinson, your continued monitoring of the Nicetown gas plant effort matters. And so you need to know that we're paying attention because you're paying attention. Okay? Really. And then again to Alex to list off the coalition that includes grassroots as well as those who live and breathe this on an intellectual level. It really, really does matter and make a difference. You've given us multiple assignments. Let me repeat that. You've given us multiple assignments. There's 17 of us, okay? Not all 17 care about this issue. Let me just be clear. Not all seven, because there's 17 uniquely different professionals who come with different life experiences. And so we have to gather and get those we can get, and the others will come kicking and screaming. That's okay with that. That's the way kids are, right? You got to bring them along sometimes kicking and screaming. So we have to continue to be vigilant and repeating ourselves on why moving away from fossil fuel is not about tomorrow, it's really about now, and other related issues that you've talked about. So know that my staff and I are paying attention, and while we have our legislative agenda carved out for us from September of last year through June of next year, because that's the way we do business in my office, you've given us some additional opportunities for this committee come January and February of next year. So thank you all very, very, very much. Okay, so now if we could call up Maurice Sampson, Clean Water Action, Brianna Hushman, Clean Water Action. Tammy Murphy, Physicians for Social Responsibility. Walter Sue, Physicians for Social Responsibility. And again, we ask that you do all you can to hold to the average, let me just say this, the average amount of time our witnesses have been is now up to 5 minutes. So if we can get it back down to 3 minutes, we will end on target. Okay? All right then. Thank you very much. Please, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's always good to be back. I feel sometimes like I live here. I'm going to try a 2-minute drill. Let's see what we can do. My name is Maurice Sampson, 129 West Gorgas Lane. I'm the Eastern Pennsylvania Director for Clean Water Action. I want to speak ever so briefly on 4 topics. First, lead. Lead is found everywhere. It is in paint, it is in soil, it is in plumbing, it's in our homes, our schools, the dust from demolition, even in toys purchased at the dollar store. Ignorance is the single greatest reason for lead poisoning. If you understand and know where the lead is in your life, like a hot stove, you can avoid it. So for all the things that we are doing and must do with the legislation, what we need to do is to let people become aware, because if they are aware, they can avoid being poisoned. We have, working with the Water Department, funding from William Penn Foundation over the last year, have engaged in a project where we intend to talk to a 20-minute presentation based on that flyer that you have. And we want to talk to everybody because we need them to understand what's going on. We are losing generations to the damage that is done by lead, and that can stop. We are currently working with Councilman Bass, Parker, Councilman Squilla on doing an outreach campaign that we're going to schedule programs for the whole year that are in their districts, and we want to invite other council people to join that so that we can get the word out. In time, people will talk about how to avoid lead on buses and subways, and when that happens, our campaign will have succeeded. Recycling. Recycling is in trouble, more so than any of us understand. The issue of contamination cannot be overstated. While we have the opportunity to address this issue, and let me be clear about this, the Streets Department has probably one of the best collection networks ever, but they do not have the expertise to look at this. Right now, in a room across the way, there's a whole room of people on their advisory committee who basically get entertained and are never asked any questions. You are going to shortly be getting contracts for recycling and for waste. You need to find out what those experts in the room have to say because no one is asking us. I'm also pleased to announce that Clean Water Action, in cooperation with the Mural Arts Academy, have been working over the last 6 months, and we are going to launch a public campaign in support of legislation to incentivize the use of reusable shopping bags. We've been working with the Mayor's Zero Waste and Litter Cabinet and Councilman Squilla as the third leg in a 3-legged strategy. The bill in development, it will ban plastic bags, assure everyone that needs to get a bag can get one, and reward those that bring a bag. It's not a bag ban. This is a reuse incentive act. Stay tuned in the new year for more details. The most important issue you will consider, I would submit, in the time that I would submit perhaps even in your career when it comes to environment, is going to be on the liquefied natural gas plant scheduled for Passyunk. This is an issue of public policy, and City Council holds the key. If we are serious about this plant, we can't allow it to be built. There is no future for fossil fuel infrastructure. We need a solid plan that moves us to renewables, one that calls for a rapid transition that protects the poor and builds the economy. We are going to have hearings, and they're going to be talking about the pluses and minuses of the plant. It is a minus from the beginning. What City Council needs to do is to figure out what happens. How do we get to renewables? What do we do in a 35-year plan in year 3 and 4 and 5? We don't know. We haven't had that discussion. If you pick this plan, it's not one and the other. It's one or the other. Because if you pick one, there will be no time for the other. And given the circumstances of what we know is happening in our climate, we will simply be a player in bringing us down. So let's do the right thing. Let City Council work on the policy. This is a policy question. Let's talk about energy, and let's talk about how we're going to get the kind of energy that we need. I tell you, I think even discussing the plan in here is a colossal waste of time. Thank you. 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. We'll circle back with a comment. Brianna Hashman?
I timed myself at 3, so we'll see. My name is Brianna Hashman. I'm a geologist and currently a program manager at Clean Water Action. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in geology, and I began my geochemistry research career 9 years ago. My expertise is studying how life and Earth interact together to create environmental change on a planet-wide scale. As both a geologist and environmental activist, I'm here to ask you to not fast-track approval of the proposed Passyunk LNG export plant. This LNG plant represents a commitment from this city to use natural gas for the next 25 years. When I first learned about natural gas, research suggested that this fuel source could produce 50 to 60% less carbon dioxide emissions than coal. While I wanted stronger protections for public health and the environment, the climate implications made me pro-natural gas. 10 years later, when I transitioned to environmental activism, I was surprised to see how the state of research had changed. While burning natural gas does produce less carbon dioxide emissions than coal, there are also emissions of the stronger greenhouse gas methane that leaks from pipelines and other infrastructure. Research suggests these methane leaks erase any climate benefit that natural gas may hold over coal. By focusing on carbon dioxide to the exclusion of methane and ignoring greenhouse gas emissions from every part of the production line, the fossil fuel industry is manipulating figures to make natural gas appear like a sustainable fuel source. Climate science is not a buffet, and treating the research this way prevents consumers from making informed decisions. If you accept climate science and want to make decisions based on the holistic view of current scientific understanding, then you cannot simultaneously endorse long-term investments in natural gas infrastructure like the Passyunk LNG export plant. Advertisements from PGW in the Philadelphia region tell you that natural gas is a platform for renewable energy. These ads say that when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, natural gas fills the gap. What they don't mention is that hydropower and batteries can also fill this gap. It's in the interest for natural gas interest groups and their partners to focus on the perceived problems with renewable energies while minimizing the risks of natural gas. Which is why these ads fail to tell us of the cities around the world that are successfully shifting towards 100% renewable energy right now without the need of a dirty bridge fuel. Philadelphia is listed as one of the top 10 most vulnerable U.S. cities to climate change. And the most recent IPCC report has made it clear that our society only has decades to go 100% renewable. Philadelphia cannot afford to make long-term commitments to any type of fossil fuel, and we cannot afford to delay the transition to renewable energies. Our city has the potential to lead the charge in restructuring the way we repower our society as our nation deals with crumbling energy infrastructure. The question is, will our sustainable energy transformation be about optics or real substantial change for the climate? A renewable energy future is technologically and economically feasible. The only thing we're missing is a lack of political will. If we truly want to honor any pledge our city has made to fight climate change, then everyone in this room needs to fight to generate this political will today. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you very, very much. Brianna Hashman, I think you're the first geologist that's ever spoken and given testimony here. Kudos.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome, Dr. Sue.
Hi, thank you so much, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. My name is Dr. Walter Sue. I serve as the Executive Director of Philadelphia Physicians for Social Responsibility. I have a longer 3-page testimony which I enter for your consideration. I'd like to first off congratulate all the wonderful speakers before me, including Maurice and Bree, who have articulated much of what I would also like to say. I think that I want to talk about 3 issues. One is the septic gas plant, which has already been spoken about. But in the consideration of my own testimony around the issue, what I realize is that the Air Management Department, which I used to run as the health commissioner of the city, and to my great embarrassment, is permitting this gas plant in part because it follows a very narrow set of regulations that they use for approval. We need to change the air code in this city. And we have to do this in the context of climate change. We should insist that renewable energy is a criteria and our first criteria for permitting any energy-producing facility in the city, and only upon failure of why renewable energy is not an adequate energy source should we actually even consider the next step of whether we should permit a fossil fuel generating facility. The second thing that is true about the septic gas plant is that the Nicetown area has the second highest asthma hospitalization rate in the city, and yet that is not a consideration in the permitting process. And this is a health department that is actually allowing this gas plant to be built, even though they are the ones that are collecting the asthma health statistics. I find that, as a former health commissioner, very embarrassing to admit. We should not allow energy-producing facilities in areas that are already heavily impacted by adverse health statistics. The second thing I want to mention is two words for your consideration, and those words are planned obsolescence. We have heard much about the problems with climate change in this room, and I believe that PGW and Philadelphia Energy Solutions need to be planned obsolescence. That is to say, they need to go away. We need to change how we do energy in this city, as we've heard. And Philadelphia Gas Works, unfortunately for you, is under the domain of city government. That's the bad news. And the good news, though, is that it gives you an opportunity to figure out over the next few years how we're going to transition ourselves from a PGW gas-producing entity into one that actually embraces the science around climate change and around renewable energy. And then finally, Philadelphia Energy Solutions, which is the largest toxic emitter of air pollution in the city of Philadelphia, is a serious problem. They are the largest producer of gasoline in the city, in the East Coast, and we are moving to a world where we're going to have more electric vehicles, thank God. We need in the city to think about how we're going to embrace EVs, but we also have to plan for the inevitable reduction of gasoline demand, which means that we have to plan for Philadelphia Energy Solutions' eventual bankruptcy and how we're going to repurpose that area for something that actually is valuable and useful for the residents of the city. We can be leaders about this, or we can just simply be victims of what is the inevitable changes that we're going to see in climate change. Finally, let me say that there are some energy solutions that we have not talked about in this testimony up to now. Let's suppose we were really bold and we said that all new construction in this city has to have solar panels and has to have geothermal wells as part of the construction, and that we hire people in Philadelphia to do those construction tasks. What would happen if we actually made a deal with New Jersey and Delaware and said that we're going to buy tidal energy? Yes, nobody actually has a tidal energy solution right now, but they're sitting on this ocean called the Atlantic Ocean that has 24-hour power that's being generated every day. And we could actually, as a region, say we're going to help solve this climate energy process by actually buying and purchasing tidal energy from our neighbors. And we could actually think of other creative solutions where we can embrace the idea. You've already done something in Adams County. We need to expand that for all the businesses in this city. I won't go on because I would say that there are other wonderful testimonies to hear, but I would say that we need some bold solutions, and this hearing is actually about trying to think about bold solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. Please, if we could now ask Tammy Murphy to join the witness table, Physicians for Social Responsibility. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Pull the mic closer to you. Identify yourself first.
Okay. My name is Tammy Murphy. I'm the Medical Advocacy Director of Physicians for Social Responsibility. I have submitted a 10-page document. This is in regard to SEPTA's proposed power plant in Nicetown. I know you've heard a lot about it. The reason I gave the 10-page document is to provide you with some details and some resources, and I'm happy to meet with you and any council members that are interested in going over this, and I can bring my friend Walter Sue here. Right. Okay, so the first part of it is the consideration of cumulative impacts of the total environment in the area. So a few points: the population is within 3 miles of the plant is in the 90th percentile of low income and the 93rd for minority populations in Pennsylvania, and is a very dense area. So I'm not going to go over all of the details, but I have here the Environmental Justice Index report that is available through the EPA. Wow. So these are the details specifically for that town. On the next page is a map of the actual location, just a regular Google map of the location. Okay, underneath of that, I have something from Food and Water Watch. They have a very recent report about power plants. So this particular map is map number 3 from the Food and Water Watch. And this is showing the impacted community in terms of the existing power plants. Each of those green circles represents a 3-mile radius. This is on the back of the first page. And then the red areas are communities of color, and then they have little sort of cross marks for communities struggling with income. So as you can see, this circle here, that is where the proposed power plant will be. That is in the midst of some of the most struggling communities in our city that are already pretty much surrounded by power plants and toxicity. So adding that is adding not only to the community within that circle, but all of the communities around it that are already suffering from their own power plants and their own sources of toxicity. So that's from Food and Water Watch. And then the next map, as you turn the page, this is the one with the blue. This has to do with asthma rates in the city. Right there in basically the center, you have the highest. And that mark is not actually in the exact zone where this is going to be. It's pretty much right next to it. But air pollution will travel. So we're talking about an area that's highly impacted already. It's one of the highest rates. And it's also surrounded by other highest rates of asthma. Mm-hmm. And then as you go down to the next map, this is a map that's showing the area by race. And the area with the red color is the Black community. The area with the sort of magenta is majority white community. And then the area sort of towards the bottom right of it is a Latino community. So this is the exact area in the red is exactly where this power plant is going to be, like right in the heart of the Black community in that area. The next page is from the same source, and that is showing income levels. And this is the same exact area, also in red. So this is not by race, but this is showing the income. So you're talking about some of the most struggling in terms of impact. You have the Black community, you have asthma, you have multiple layers of existing struggles, and then putting this power plant on top of it. We heard from many people, a couple of the neighbors that were here today talking about it. They don't want it. They've rejected it, and I don't think they've had adequate opportunity to speak publicly about it or to be heard, to have their voices heard about it, but we're trying to get that out. So hopefully we'll have more of that, but they're building it. I mean, we don't have the money to fight it with an injunction. They're already building it. We're trying to go through the appeals process, but the community, even the environmental groups, were struggling to pay for lawyers to go through the appeals process, but we don't have the money for an injunction. And so in the meantime, they're building it, and then once they build it, they're going to say it's built, and there's nothing that we can do about it. But we don't have the money to stop it, but you have the power. So hopefully our voice will bring you to step up to it. So the next section, section 2, covers air pollution health impacts. And this is just a quick show of what the Nicetown community is already dealing with: the traffic pollution, the fossil fuel power plants that are already burning in the area, and these are just a couple of different ways. So you go down to the body, it shows the different areas where it's impacted. We can get into much more detail when I have more than 2 minutes. If you turn the page, it shows the people that are most impacted, which basically comes down to children, women, particularly pregnant women, and or childbearing age, I should say, and elderly communities, and those that are already dealing with, that are already immunocompromised. So the fine particles basically, in a nutshell, cause shorter life. That's the number one take away from it. But it's also learning disabilities, Alzheimer's, depression, stroke, autism, heart disease, asthma, lung cancer, reduced lung function, obesity, birth defects, low birth weight, and diabetes. And I'm sorry to say that sounds like the warning signs of a pharmaceutical ad, but that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with. Putting this power plant into that community is going to cause a whole host of illnesses for the community. And there's no, it's an environmental justice issue in so many ways, but people can't choose the air that they breathe. There's nothing they can do to get away from it. I mean, there's really nothing. And when you talk about the woman that was here earlier, Ms. Lancaster, that was here, and she works over at the Kroc Center. The Kroc Center literally got a grant because there is no place for children to play in that area. So they literally got a grant to be built, to be put in that community, to give people a place to exercise, to fight obesity. This is not only causing obesity, but this is literally directly across the street from the place that got a grant to give kids a place to play and exercise. It's disgusting. So you're going to be polluting the place. It makes no sense. This is directly across the street from it, and there's nowhere else to play. So then Section 3, some specific data on natural gas power plants. I won't go into all of them. It lists some details about nitrogen oxide, particulate matter, volatile organic compounds, ultrafine particulates, and there's a reason I went into the details of the ultrafine particulate matter. It's because the EPA does not regulate ultrafine particulate matter. There's particulate matter that it controls, but ultrafine is less researched, I think, and there aren't restrictions, and we don't really have the time to wait for the EPA to come around on this. We already know that it's dangerous, but we're not going to have the Trump administration doing anything about that to protect us. So we don't have time to wait for them. And we already know that this is damaging, and we can't wait for the EPA to come around for it. So we know that, and the research is out there, so it's time for us to step up and make these protections. And I think our environmental amendment is enough to say that we have the protection from this. And then the last couple of things here are just a couple of peer-reviewed medical journal reports, basically talking, in 2012, talking about increased rates of hospitalization, basically coming from power plants. So that's asthma, acute respiratory infections, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, commonly known as COPD. And then the 2015 is talking about the adverse birth outcomes that have to do with correlations with power plants. And then the last page is just some more details about the danger of methane, which I think was adequately covered earlier in this session, but also I think this is kind of an interesting thing, that if you look at the thing that says, where's your summer ahead? We're set to, by 2100, we are set to have the temperature of San Antonio, Texas in Philadelphia.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't want that. And then, so we have some energy sources, clean energy, some positive things on the following page that we can go over in more detail with the following meeting. And the back page just has my information and PSR National's information.
Well, thank you. I'm a former teacher, and I learned with visuals. This is an excellent graphic presentation of a lot of the written testimony that we've heard. I must ask any and all of you, have you had a chance to speak before any of the community meetings for the Nicetown effort, or the SEPTA public meetings, or the PGW board meetings?
I spoke at the Steele Elementary School when we met with SEPTA there a couple years ago. I basically gave a very similar presentation to this, and their response was that air pollution goes up. That's really what they had to say to my report.
Has the coalition collectively reduced to writing for all the reasons you've articulated quite excellently, in writing, why either of those, the one in South Philly, which I think is Councilman, help me out, Kenyatta Johnson? And I know full well that Councilwoman Bass has been on top of it in her district. Have they had hearings in South Philly on that?
This is all just happening now. And it's on sort of
Please use the mic.
This whole issue on the plant is happening now.
The one in South Philly?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what you're hearing is the time to even get together to talk about it is barely there.
I see.
Okay, so part of the energy of saying why this needs to be slowed down, we need to not rush in this decision. You know, they want to build it in Philly and we're not going anywhere, so we don't have to make a decision in January. We can wait a year. We need to take the time to figure out what our policy needs to be. I mean, what are they going to do, build it in Baltimore? I don't think so. It's going to be here or they're not going to build it. So they need to wait while we have the discussion and we decide what's best for Philadelphia.
What I'd like to commit to as a result of this hearing is to have a very direct conversation with the administration, Julian, and then circle back to all those who testified to at least for us to get a reading on where that is in the process.
Absolutely.
But for this hearing, and because I don't live in South Philly and we're focused on other things like lead, I would not be aware of it.
Well, they're going to come to you after it goes through the next phase with the Gasworks Commission. It comes to council. It needs council's approval in order to happen. It needs 9 votes.
Yeah.
So it's going to be right on your plate, and you will be the ones that ultimately will decide. So that's where the discussion is really going to happen.
It's still in the formative stage.
Well, actually, the way they look at it is you're the last step, and after you have it,
well,
it
we
happens.
are. I'm not going to dispute that.
Yes.
But the conversations haven't reached to council level yet, which
Yes.
means it sounds like, can't speak for the administration ever,
Right.
not on that side of the ledger, that they are having conversations and discussions. And the Office of Sustainability is not here, so I'm not privy to the status or what juncture they are in those conversations and discussions. But raising it here is a green light for me to ask more questions about it.
And I just want to answer that one question. I haven't been speaking at these hearings, but I've been going and listening because the voices are really telling the story. What I really heard at that meeting that was held most recently, as the people who want to build the plant spoke, is that this is not just about $1 million or a couple $1 million a year for Philadelphia. In order for them to succeed to do that, they have to change all the forms of energy in the city to fossil fuels. It has to what they're going to do is build a plant that basically will be here and store a huge amount of material. And we can look at cracker plants to make plastics. We can look at turning all the diesel to natural gas and get the particulate matter. This plant is about rebuilding a new fossil fuel infrastructure. That's what it's about. And that's what we have. That's why I say, you're going to have privy to, here's the plan and here's the pluses and the minuses. I am saying you need to put that aside and say, what kind of energy plan do we want for this city? We have to make the policy decision before we can start getting in the details. The details are distracting. You're going to end up talking about whether it's good or bad when it's all bad. We need to talk about the policy first, and that's City Council's job.
Well taken. Let me say this, it's part of our job, okay? Because we have to do constituent service, and there are a gazillion issues facing the city.
Absolutely.
The challenge for us always is, with all gazillion issues hitting us daily, and the time that we have, where do we prioritize all that is coming before us? Again, but for this hearing, because my office has been focused on lead.
Yes, ma'am.
But for this hearing, I would not be aware of it because I don't live in South Philly. So that's why hearings of this general nature are very, 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 very useful, because they give us a chance to hear all of what's happening within a particular space. So that is indeed very, 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 very helpful. One final comment, and then we got to move on.
Yeah, let me make a last comment. My first involvement in energy actually happened in the late 70s and 80s after the energy crisis. And one of the things that I learned in that experience is when you get the energy part of the equation right, all of the other environmental issues come into focus. So, just like you said, we're dealing with a whole lot of issues. The truth of the matter is, we go away from fossil fuels and adopt the right mix of renewables, you are going to see a whole lot of other problems dissolve from the list. It's about getting the equation right.
Right.
Okay? Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a follow-up on that. Okay. Please, thank you all. Audrey Williams, Philly Thrive. Johanna Cardenhill, Philly Thrive. Mark Ewell, Energy Justice Network. And Greg Parmer, Neighbors Against the Gas Plant. A friendly reminder to try to honor the clock. We're up. Marvie Sampson, we're going to lean on you to come back and testify during our lead hearings, and to bring. This is fabulous. It's outstanding, done by Clean Water Action Pennsylvania. It's outstanding. In fact, we're going to send this to council colleagues before we have those hearings. Okay, please state your full name for the record, and
Yes. my
please
name is-
offer your testimony.
I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Audrey Kiani, and I'm coming forth about, I live in South Philly myself, and what I don't think that most people is aware of, living in South Philly, these fumes are killing our children. I have a son now in his prime, and now he has cancer, my only child. I'm here begging for the children too. It's not only hurting the adults, it's down to our kids. And something needs to be done. I hear everybody talking about it needs to be there, it needs to be there. It needs to be away from the public, period. I know they can put it underground or something, and that's what we need. We in desperate need and help. They can't wait for maybe another 10 years. 10 years would be too late for a lot of children. And as a mother, it hurts very much. And I would be able to do anything and everything I can to change things around. And I'm not the only one. I'm here to speak to you also about the surroundings.
About what?
Surroundings.
Okay.
I live right up to near Grace Ferry. And the things that's going on and things that they throw out is like we're one big garbage can. We can throw anything there, and they have to accept it. We're tired of accepting it. We're tired of being the way we are. We have a voice also, because we're the ones who got to live there. Why shouldn't we have number one voice to say what can be there and what can't? We're the ones that's suffering. And I hear everybody say, well, maybe this is 3 years, maybe this is 5 years. We don't have that long. We live near 2 schools. The children come out there to play, to breathe, and we live near a park. Half of the time they can't come out there. And this, sometimes the fumes so sickening, you could be in the house and smell it. Why do we have to live this way? We're paying like anybody else. Why are we have the whole bulk of everything? This is not right. And I think we should exercise our voice each and everywhere we do. If we have to march in solidarity, we need to do that. We're tired of being We can pay, you can get that from us, but we can't get nothing else for it. How long do we have to go this way? When is our voices going to be heard? Do we have to march? Whatever we have to do, now we're marching for our children and for their life. And I think everybody's discussing, well, we'll do this, we can't hold on till that long. We need action now. And I'm sorry to get a little high, but this is getting to me. We're not just a piece of paper with our name on it. We're human beings. And now it's affecting the children. That is too much.
I want to ask you to please make sure you meet Molly Michael, who's the president of the Philadelphia chapter of Moms Clean Air Force. If you could connect with her before she leaves, because your testimony is very much linked to their mission. So you want to make that connection before she leaves. Please, next up, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Please connect with Molly before she leaves.
Hi, I'm Johanna Corden-Hill. I, along with Miss Audrey, work with Philly Thrive, and we organize in South Philly, predominantly against the oil refinery that's been referenced a few times. And we really try to center the voices of people who live nearby the refinery, and I call on you to do the same in any decision-making to center these voices. So I'm actually going to pass the rest of my time to Miss Carol.
Okay, then.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Carol White. I'm also here for the very first time. I'm also on a fence sign in South Philadelphia. I live in Wilson Park. This is the first time that I got a chance to express how I feel about the people that's dying around me. 8 or 9 people on my block, just my block, passed away. And it's like, I've been here for just 15 years. I've been hearing stories. We had a meeting not too long ago about the training, to how we can come to the board and come to a training to come down and try to stop this permit for these people to try to get this biogas across the street from my house. I have 3 plants across the street from my house. You know, I got PES, I got PD Jubble, and now they want to put a biogas right across the street from my house. They have explosions. We have the tankers going past our homes. We also have, we talk about, like my mother just passed of cancer. When I was coming up, I'm almost 59, I'm 59, almost 60, and I never seen so many cancer patients in my life. I just went to 8 funerals in the past month. Since my mother passed in January, it's been funeral after funeral after funeral, and which is really bothering me because I have a lot of grandchildren and I have a lot of children that comes to visit me. And every time they do visit me, I be thinking sometimes too, I can have my family members coming by my home, accepting all these fumes, and then taking it back to their families, you know? So we don't know exactly what's going on, but I know that I would like for someone to come out and test the waters. You know, you talk about everybody have these sites they can go and test and, you know, get things that organize around the fuels. When somebody's going to come out and test these fuels, somebody can put some type of paper together or go to the ground and find out where it's leaking from or what are all the things that we're breathing. We don't know exactly all we're breathing. We're breathing too many different things. The rate is for my seniors. They live in a high-rise. Their high-rise do not have central air. So they actually have to leave their windows open in order to get air. And exactly every, I say 15 or 20 seniors passed since I've been out there. I'll see you one day, the next day you're gone. So I just hope that everybody can come together, all the organizations can come together and come out to South Philadelphia, give us some type of something to look at, something to listen to, and something we can have some type of monitoring stations. That's supposed to came up, because I remember going to the doctors, we had a conference with the doctors and medicals team at the library, and I spoke there also. No one ever showed us that they went out there. They want to test the waters. They want to go out and live around us and see, monitor something. Let us know what we're breathing. You know, I actually get sick sometimes myself, you know, and I have to go to the doctors like every other like 3 months just to find out how my breathing is. I can't sleep at night. I have a sleeping disorder now. I never had it before, you know, and it seems like the more and more that we come about taking our seniors out to different meetings that we have. We have town hall meetings. We have surveys. You know, we have done that all the time. We're trying to get people to come out and understand what we're doing. We had 50 persons that came out to our training, and some people said, we never knew that.
Well, let me ask a question. Has the Philadelphia Water Department attended those meetings?
No. No, ma'am.
Has the Philadelphia Water Department been approached in writing, asking them to come out and test the water?
That'd be our second step since you're mentioning it. But we do have a
That
councilman.
I would urge you to submit a formal letter
Yes,
to the Commissioner of the Philadelphia Water Department.
Yes.
I do know that they come out to community efforts, because we've had them for 8 consecutive Fridays at senior citizen centers around the city.
yes.
So that would be my recommendation to the Water Department Commissioner, the name of which you can get from my staff, and we are more than willing to lean on and ask the Commissioner, copy our office,
Yes.
okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, Ms. White.
Thank you.
Mr. Mike Ewell, please pronounce your last name for me.
Mike Ewell.
Ewell, okay, very well. Energy Justice Network, welcome.
Thank you for having me. So, Charles Lee, the Senior Policy Director for EPA's Office of Environmental Justice, said that was the worst case of environmental racism that he's ever seen. He was talking about Chester, Pennsylvania, just southwest of us. They, among many other polluting industries, host the nation's largest trash incinerator, which is the largest single destination for where Philadelphia's trash goes. They're also one of the largest air polluters in the whole 5-county Philadelphia area. They're actually, the number one is the PES oil refinery, then the airport, and then this trash incinerator. They're also number 3 in nitrogen oxides, and they're in the top 10 on global warming gases as well in that whole 5-county area. Philly's right downwind. The nitrogen oxides that they release trigger asthma attacks. Philadelphia's got a serious asthma problem, so does Chester. Asthma is the leading cause of missed school days, missed work days, lost productivity. There are a lot of other health effects, but I'll just focus on that one for a moment here. That incinerator has no controls for nitrogen oxides. Most have 4 pollution control devices in general. This one has 2, and it's completely missing the ones that would reduce the asthma problem that we have. And to put it in perspective, the nitrogen oxides being kicked out of that one incinerator that's burning Philly's trash is equal to 57 Nicetown gas power plants. Just Philadelphia's portion of the waste being burned there is equal to 16 Nicetown gas power plants. Now, we have an opportunity to do something about it. We have a moral obligation to do something about it. Incineration is the most expensive and polluting way to manage waste or to make energy. For every 100 tons of trash we burn, 70 tons become air pollution. We end up breathing it. We're using our lungs as our garbage disposal system. The other 30 tons become highly toxic ash, which still goes to landfills, yet the city maintains that it has a zero waste to landfill plan, which is the hijacking of zero waste. There's no such thing as zero waste to landfill, because you just make our lungs the first landfill and you put toxic ash in the landfills instead. So it's actually worse than landfilling to be burning our trash. Now, we're directly landfilling about 60%, but the 40% of our trash that we're burning in Chester and other places is a serious health problem. It's even a climate problem. Trash incineration is 2.5 times as bad as coal burning for the climate in terms of CO2 output, and that's EPA's own data. These are the largest air polluters in their jurisdiction. The trash incinerator in Chester is the largest air polluter in Chester. It's the 3rd largest in the 5-county area. We also use the one in Plymouth in Montgomery County. That incinerator, owned by the same company, is the largest air polluter in Montgomery County. We also use the trash incinerator in my home county. I'm originally from Bucks County in Falls Township, a company called Wheelbrader. That's the largest air polluter in Bucks County. So there's a trend here, and we need to stop sending our waste to incinerators. The city, and I'm meaning to be in a meeting across the street that Maurice just dashed off to, they're talking about the waste contracts now. But they're about to issue a request for proposals for the next 7 to 10 years for where Philly's trash is going to go, because our current contracts run out next summer. And I've been battling them just to get copies of the current contracts, and they are stonewalling me, saying these documents don't exist, when they clearly do. So there's a right to know problem I've been fighting as well. But we need to have City Council lay down the law and say no to any more incineration contracts. Pennsylvania has a glut of landfill space. I've helped fight landfills. It was some of my first fights I've ever been involved with, and I understand how bad they are. But incinerators are worse. We've done the study on it. We know they're worse by many different ways. We have so much landfill space that we actually are filling our landfills up with out-of-state waste, and Pennsylvania's been the largest importer of out-of-state trash since they started measuring it in the early 90s.
What's the alternative?
The alternative immediately is to send waste directly to the landfills instead of burning a lot of it first and then sending them ash, because you're not doing anyone a favor by sending toxic ash to the landfills and sending the rest of the trash into our lungs. But the real answer, of course, is doing zero waste, genuine zero waste, which means no burning, and then a lot of different policy options, from getting curbside composting collection, all the different things. I can do a whole talk on that, but let me just finish the few points I have on this, because I know my time is limited. The Conestoga landfill in Berks County is just one of many landfills in this region. That one landfill, which we also use to some degree, but they have 5 times the capacity needed to take all the waste, the 40% that we burn, and send it there, so that we don't have to be burning it and making a worse problem for people. The streets department has not been open. The procurement department also has been very difficult to get the contract information. So I need help from city council. We need city council to step in and say, we need a law passed that sets criteria for where we're allowed to send our waste. Ideally, it would just say no burning. We're not going to do that anymore. But at a minimum, set a criteria that says we're not going to use facilities that emit so much pollution. And if you set any reasonable criteria, incineration will be out anyway. And the last point I'll say is one of the 2 contracts we have, in addition to burning in Chester and other trash incinerators, is with Waste Management. They have a plant they built not far from where I live in Northeast Philadelphia, in Holmesburg. They call it a spec fuel plant. And they're turning trash into trash pellets and marketing that to places like cement kilns in the Lehigh Valley to burn when they make cement, which is even filthier because they're not designed to be burning trash. The trash incinerators are filthy enough, but these are even worse. And there's now a new plan in another environmental justice issue for the city, right in Grays Ferry area, in next to Bartram Garden. Another company called Gold Medal wants to set up a shop to pelletize Philadelphia trash and market to places to burn. We need to make sure that we're keeping an eye on that, not allowing that, and not signing contracts to do that. Thank you.
You are an investigator.
I am. I've been at this for 30 years, so I'm happy to supply all the information you can.
I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mr. Ewald. Greg Palmer? We're coming down on the clock. We have 20 minutes left.
2 minutes. I'm going to take 2 minutes. Thank you.
You are welcome, and thank you for staying.
Appreciate you having this hearing. Appreciate the other council people attending.
Yes.
And I'm a 60-year resident of Germantown, the past Democratic ward leader of the 12th ward in Germantown. And I'd like to suggest that the environment, first of all, I want to agree with everything that's been said. I'm here opposing this SEPTA power plant in Nicetown. I'd like to define the environment also as the idea of jobs, the idea of possibility of using this site to create a great number of jobs, because without jobs in a community, the environment is very unhealthy. This is a 27-acre contiguous piece of ground that has 3 street fronts, a train stop, a bus stop, a Wissahickon Avenue address, and a Roosevelt Boulevard on and off ramp. 27 acres of contiguous property. It could be a huge opportunity to create a huge number of jobs for the men and women of our community. Climate is very important in our community. I don't want to take away from the other testimony that's been made. Climate is critical. But climate can also include the ability for men and women to have work, to be able to come home and have families, to bring something home to. This piece of property, if it were located in certain parts of the city, would have had a PIDC plan put together for it, and there would have been number of jobs, stores, Home Depot, what have you, to create a number of jobs for people in that community, which is what people really, really need. On top of clean air, the next most important thing for the men and women of our community is the opportunity to have gainful employment in 27 acres of contiguous land with a train stop, a bus stop, a Wissahickon Avenue address, an on and off exit and entrance to Roosevelt Boulevard across from a $130 million health center is a place that would be invaluable to a number of different commerce opportunities. And so I'd like to suggest that a way out of this mess is to say no to this way of developing this 27-acre contiguous piece of property, to this power plant, and say yes to PIDC doing a plan that markets this property as a property that is, I think, probably the most valuable piece of property in Northwest Philadelphia, if not Philadelphia, that's contiguous, that's undeveloped, that has all of the assets that I've pointed out repeatedly, that could create the opportunity for men and women of our neighborhood to have what they need as much as they need clean air, and that's jobs. Several weeks ago, we had 5 men in Germantown shot. Now, they were shot as a result, in my estimation, of not having the opportunity to have convenient, gainful employment. So environment is critical. When bullets start to fly, we can either talk about guns, we can talk about crime, or we can talk about jobs, economic opportunity. This site lends itself tremendous amount of economic opportunity. When I was first introduced to this situation, at a state representative's office, there was a SEPTA representative there, and he immediately said to me, the value of this site is it will create 2 jobs. I couldn't believe it. I said, sir, this site can create many more jobs than that. You know, we have to change what we're talking about. Rather than talking about polluting, rather than talking about crime, rather than talking about getting rid of guns, we need to talk about creating economic prosperity for neighborhoods like Nicetown and Germantown and North Philadelphia. If we don't do that, the air can be as clean as it wants to be. But if people aren't there to breathe it, it doesn't much matter. So I thank you again for having this hearing. I hope you'll vote to oppose this and understand that we have a way out. We have a piece of property that can create a lot of jobs if we develop it in some appropriate fashion. Thank you very much.
We thank you for your testimony, and I will say that around the Nicetown issue, you're the first one to speak to how that site can be reused in a way that brings economic development to that community and still achieve the goals as articulated. So thank you for registering that on the record. Please, final testimony. We're on a clock.
I will only take 20 or 30 seconds. My name is Sylvia Bennett. I live
Welcome.
in South Philadelphia. I raised 5 children down there. 2 almost died, 8 months apart with cancer. My grandchildren came down with asthma. I'm a community person. I've worked in that community. I've been block captain for 50 years. I'm asking City Council to help. We need help. My neighbors, I watch children grow up. They're dying. I watched twin boys come down with cancer. Their sister came down. We almost lost her. Their father died of lung cancer. Somebody has to do something. If you're lying in your bed and you smell odors coming in through your window with the windows closed, somebody's got to stop and say, these people need help. Where are you supposed to go if the air is not right? If the children playing in the park across from me picking up all types of bacteria from what's coming out of the air. We need help. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ooh. Well, it's a tall order for members of City Council and a huge elephant that we have to tackle. Know that my office is keeping a copy of all the testimony. We'll be meeting with a number of you in the early part of the year to enhance our own already prescribed legislative agenda. I do commit to a couple of letters that I'm going to write to agencies and individuals that I will name nameless now. Members of this testimony audience will be copied. You've given us huge assignments, terrific facts based on data, which drives a lot of policy decisions. So thank you all very, very much for your personal testimony, your expert testimony, and just for caring about how we can indeed authentically grow a greener, cleaner city. The City Committee on the Environment and Sustainability is recessed until the call of the chair. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Janie.